Your wives are so beautiful to me. They're just so beautiful, man. Every time I see their eyes and their lips, their plump lips, man, your wives are just so beautiful to me.
It wasn't befitting for anyone to speak like that.
I don't think I would ever have said something like that. If I had a drink in my mouth right now, I would have spat it out.
You know what the filthiest of them all is? You know what the most sickest of them all is? They're the youth. They're the youth, akhi. The thought that's come to my mind like, but he's got a pretty wife, like. But are you as a man happy that there are men that perv over your wife?
Bro, I've got more ghaira for this sister than her own husband does.
Like, why are you sharing your wife with us? This is our wife now. And he actually, like, he masturbated to the girl on the street.
Huh? You got people in the da'wah scene putting pictures of their mums up online without hijab.
You're a dad.
Oh no, but I'm not the youth because I don't let my wife sleep around. No, Habibi, you are the youth. What about sisters that are online giving da'wah?
Stay at home. Women's job is to stay at home. I remember I was on the da'wah table one time and there was this girl that was there, and at the end she was like, yo, I gotta go, but can we talk about this over Nando's? She even said something to me that shocked me. She said...
I feel like I disagree with you guys. Okay. I feel like you're making it a bit tough.
Can there ever be such thing as too much ghaira or an extreme when it comes to ghaira?
Brothers who are very extreme in ghaira, you find that they'll contradict a lot. Like some brothers will say, no, you can't go to the dars. But what? He would send his wife on a bus. That baffles me, bro. The brother was you.
Huh? Yeah, do you remember?
I don't remember.
In the car, bro, you got so angry. Some brothers would take offense. Don't mention my wife's name. What do you mean don't mention my wife's name?
Yeah, I would find it a bit weird if you mentioned my wife's name.
But I'm saying, no, there's nothing weird about it.
I would find that very weird.
We know the person's wife name. Certain people, I'm not going to mention their names, but bro, clearly like they allowed their wives to do certain things because they brought home the peas, bro. That these hijab YouTubers, they brought home the peas.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Brothers and sisters, welcome to Chai with my Bhai. Today's intro is a little bit different. It's going to be delivered by someone other than myself. Let me show you a video that I found online.
And their wives and, you know, even their wives are wearing hijab, jilbab. Your wives are so beautiful to me. Honestly, they're so gorgeous. They're just so beautiful, man. Every time I see their eyes and their lips, their plump lips, man, your wives are just so beautiful to me. Continue posting your wife so I can have a good look at your wife.
So when I first saw this video, we were in a cafe, we were doing some work. And well, the first thing that came to my mind was if I had a drink in my mouth right now, I would have spat it out. You know, you have that moment where it's like, what? I was actually shocked. And I was a bit conflicted because I kind of understood where he was coming from and why he said it in the way he did. I don't think I've ever personally spoken to brother Hiwa. I believe you have him around a couple of times.
Hey, he's my guy.
I've seen him online, you know, here and there. But from what I know, he's a person that calls to khair, that calls brothers to come back to manhood and you know, things of that nature, you know, physical strength and so on and so forth, which is very good, Allah Barik. So when I saw this video, I was I didn't know how to process it. Like me personally, I don't think I would ever have said something like that. But at the same time, I was glad that someone did. I felt like it was needed. Like people have been getting away with this for too long, and you know, it's been an issue which hasn't really. And I feel like, you know, sometimes you have to try. What's the term? You have to try unorthodox approaches to get unorthodox results. Sahih? So off the bat, what were you guys' thoughts on the actual video itself initially before we get into the actual issue itself?
I just need 30 seconds of your time, inshallah ta'ala. I promise it's going to be incredible. It's going to help you become the best possible man that you can be. I know there's a lot of confusion and a lot of talk about what it means to be a man. Some people want to listen to Andrew Tate. Some people want to listen to the Red Pill movement. Some people are confused. What's manhood about? Is it about women, sleeping with women, and being strong and making money? Or is it a bit deeper than that? Well, I'm going to show you from the Quran 3 ways that you can become a great man. If you focus on just these 3 things, then it's going to give you a solid foundation of becoming the best possible man you can be. And you know you can't go wrong because it's from the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal. These are things that I implemented in my life, and I'm going to show you how to implement them. And like I said, it's absolutely free. Just click the link below and start your journey in becoming the best possible man. With that said, let's get back to the discussion. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, ma ba'd. So I think it's important to understand that the brother is not actually saying that he's looking at these women's lips and he's looking at them. The point that he's trying to mention is that he's basically trying to show these men who have these males, sorry, you're right, yeah, not men, these males who encourage.
You have to be precise, right? You said earlier, right?
Yeah.
Precise about wordings.
Who encourage and permit their wives to put
and
themselves...
are pleased with.
And are pleased with their wives coming out in this way. basically he's trying to show them that this is what men are doing. And to be honest, I actually know a brother who said to me that one such woman who puts herself online and her husband comes online with her, right? Like one brother told me he masturbated to the girl on the screen. So what the brother's saying is not wrong. Do you understand? Like brothers are looking at this. I was talking to a brother earlier and he was telling me, bro, like sometimes I'm going through these brothers.
But isn't the brother to blame there rather than the sister? That's what people are going to be thinking. Wait, why is that the sister's fault that the brother's watching her and masturbating?
One second. Put the blame game to the side for a second. Because we're not here talking to the sisters, even though the sister definitely has blame because she shouldn't be putting herself out there in that way. But we're talking to the men here. Forget the blame game, okay? Let's just say the guy is to blame, no problem. But are you as a man happy that there are men that perv over your wife? I was talking to a brother the other day, a very good practicing brother. He said, sometimes, I'm on my social media and I'm just going through it and there are these guys that come on and then suddenly they bring their wife on. And he goes, bro, it's just even he goes, I'm not even trying to, but for a second, the thought does come to my mind like, but he's got a pretty wife, like. Do you get me? So I'm not saying that that's appropriate, and even the brother's saying it's not appropriate, right? But as a man, like, are you happy? Like, are you satisfied? Like, bro, where's your ghairah? Like, where's that fire that burns inside of you to like protect? Like, bro, a man to look at your wife and say, she's paying.
You said a word, and I've seen it in the comments quite a lot. But I've always seen it as a ghaira. So where did the ghaira come from, Adam?
لا تفضل
You mentioned this earlier.
لا أقدمك.
بسم الله والحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يعني something يعني غيرة is something منتشر عند الناس عند المسلمين right now.
منتشر means?
It's something that's widespread. It's something that's مستعملة. It's something used with the
What's مستعمل?
Something that's used.
Let them know that that's what it means, don't it?
Something used on the tongues of the Muslims nowadays, but لكن the actual lafz of it, the nutq of it is غير بالفتحة. Ibn Qayyim رحمه الله mentioned the same fa'idah that that's actually. Why is it too many?
What does nutq mean?
It's a fatha. You know, earlier you said you did a class to the kids.
Yeah.
You said,
I had to switch it.
and you just switch it
Close the book,
up.
yeah.
Right now,
It's
just switch it up.
bro. It's Chama.
So the actual way of saying it is غيرة. The more correct way of saying it is غيرة. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm saying.
On that note,
What were your thoughts on the video?
Wallahi, to be honest, if you want me to be very honest, the first thought that came into my head was, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, like I did not think it was يعني لا ينبغي, it wasn't befitting for anyone to speak like that.
Okay.
That was the first thing that came to my head. Like you mentioned, obviously we've seen the brother online before, Jazakallah khairah, working hard. There's not a refutation of the brother himself or his da'wah or whatever the case may be. What he's doing is really well. It's very good. Motivating the males to be men. So Jazakallah khairah for that. For that is very needed. Lakin, like you mentioned, I personally wouldn't have spoken like that, nor do I think it's befitting to put yourself in a situation to speak like that. You could definitely get the message across because the message is understood. I definitely understand what he's trying to say. It's something, like you mentioned, is needed to be said. But perhaps there could have been a better way of going about it.
The thing is, this is an issue which has been spoken about so many times by so many different people in so many different ways, and it doesn't seem to have any effect. And I feel like sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. And so, like I said, I'm not even, like we can even ask a scholar on the permissibility of saying stuff like that. I don't even know. I'm not even going to sit here and say that it's permissible to say that. But I don't know, something within me just felt glad that he did. I can't explain it to you. And I don't know if that's right or wrong.
Basically, someone said it.
Someone said it.
I
It
didn't
wasn't
say
me.
it.
I didn't say it. Someone said
But
it.
someone said it.
But someone said it. And like I mentioned to you guys, I'm not going to go into the full story, but situations in my own life where I've had, where people have done things which I wouldn't have never done. Like, and I would go as far as to say that it's wrong for them to do that, but it achieved the right result. But that's not how the deen works. You can't say that you do something wrong to get the right result. But I know there's a fine line that even me, I was conflicted when it came between A'udhu Billah and Alhamdulillah, someone said it.
Look, truth be told, and I'm not talking about the brother's video, but when it comes to the, I don't know if this is the correct term, but the Muslim manosphere, I don't know if that's
Muslim?
Manosphere. There's a manosphere. Like, I've just heard this term being thrown around. I don't even know if that's accurate, but like the brothers that are on like manhood and all of that stuff.
Okay.
I definitely do believe there's a very like high degree of distastefulness in the way that they communicate the grievances of men and the way that they put about their message. And that's why I feel like a lot of people have wrongfully mistaken a lot of these brothers as members of the Red Pill movement, which is not correct. They're not members of the Red Pill movement. And at the same time, we shouldn't accuse them of that when they've clearly mentioned that they're not. But no doubt there's a degree of distastefulness. And I feel like sometimes people have this mindset of, like learning from their enemies. Do you understand? Like just because the other side is distasteful in the way that they communicate doesn't mean that we should be distasteful. I forget the name of the...
two wrongs don't make a right.
Two wrongs don't make a right. I forget the name of the Libyan, rahimahullah ta'ala, who he protected Libya against the Italians. I forget his name. But I remember one of the things that he said, we don't kill the captives, the Italian captives. We don't just slaughter their women and unjustly. And he was told, well, they do it to ours. They kill our kids and they kill our women. And then he said, well, they are not our teachers. Our teacher is the Prophet ﷺ. So no doubt I understand your point, right? As in the way we should communicate this, we all mentioned that you said you wouldn't have said it in that way, whatever have you. And I think that's understood. And I think the brothers should take just generally a leaf out of the book of the Prophet ﷺ in the way that they deal with these things. I'm not saying that brother Hiwa's thing here was wrong. I'm not saying it was right. I don't exactly know how to feel about it. These things are always best to present to the mashayikh. And it's always good to ask the mashayikh before you put something out like this in the first place. But what I do want to touch upon is really the point that he was mentioning, which is, I feel like, and this is very easy to get bogged down on that which is lesser. Like, what's worse? A delivery which may not have been that great, if even...
Or the point.
Which is that there are guys out there. It's a pandemic, bro. And not just that, what's worse here is that it's not just that you're putting your wife out. You're putting your wife out and you're making money from it. Yeah. That she brings home the gold, bro. Because when her videos go viral, like I told you there was a business deal that we were about to do with a particular sister. One of the brothers on the Sunnah Match team sourced the deal, and there was a sister, and they were trying to do some kind of a collaboration because she used to do some relationship stuff. So I remember I jumped on a Zoom call with her to have the meeting, and obviously, like I would have expected her husband to have been present. Usually that's the way these kind of things work, but it was fine with just it being me and my partner, right? Not even my partner, but one of the brothers that work for us. When we jumped on the meeting with the sister, she even said something to me that shocked me. It blew my mind. And this used to make like peas, and she's trying to negotiate a deal with us. And I'm already not really feeling it, but now we're on the call, so I'm just trying to be respectful. And she said, she's trying to negotiate the deal. And she's like, I've got a family to provide for. like that threw me off because it just told me everything.
Something you only expect to hear from a man's mouth.
You only expect to hear from a man's house, and it made sense why the man seems to be allowing his wife to do that, because she brings home the gold. Like they had like a bunch of kids, and she was at that time expecting another kid, and she's like, look, I'm expecting another kid. Like I got to make sure I secure the peas.
Food on the table.
Like, literally, I think she even said I need to put food on the table. And in my mind, I was just like, where's your husband, bro? Like, isn't that his thing? And that's just reflective of a lot of these brothers. Like, certain people, I'm not going to mention their names, but bro, clearly like they allowed their wives to do certain things because they brought home the peas, bro. Like these hijab YouTubers, they brought home the peas, akhi. They brought home money. And then these guys became famous through it. And that's filthy, isn't it?
Because at the end of the day, as a man, it's your job to be the provider, the maintainer, the protector of women. And when you lose that, you lose a lot of leverage in that relationship.
Big time.
Like if you're not able to fulfill what you're able to fulfill, when she comes out to you now, she says, look, I want to go dress like this to a video. It's hard for you to push back. Yeah. It's hard for you to now come back and say no. Because at the end of the day, it's like, why are you here? Like, what's your job? What's your purpose? What's your... like if you have a company and there might be a person in that company and it's like, your absence is like your presence. So it's like that person's going to be scared all the time. Like, tomorrow I'm going to get sacked. Tomorrow I'm going to get sacked. Tomorrow I'm going to get sacked. It's the same thing in that relationship dynamic. The other thing I want to mention is, or rather ask, is why is it wrong in the first place for women to be coming out? Like, what's wrong with that itself? Why is that a problem? Why is it that is an issue that we're even talking about in the first place? You want to?
Let's get Saad's take on the video.
Do you want my take on the video?
First of all, if you want to give your...
No, I don't mind. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
No, the only thing I was going to mention is when I did watch the video, to be honest, I didn't actually understand what was going on. I actually thought the guy was being serious. I don't know the brother. I've never seen his stuff before. So I thought he was being serious. I was like, it's a bit crazy. But later on,
The
I
concept
thought,
of looking at other people's wives.
yeah, to say that, you know, I thank you so much, you know, I like it. And I was like, this is gharib.
This is our wife, man.
I've never seen this in my entire life from anybody. Like, I was so confused. And then later on, I thought about it and I realized what he was trying to do. And I realized, put aside whether what he did specifically was wrong or right, but the concept of putting out thought-provoking questions like this and statements like this to get a person to think about what they're doing is wrong, it's something that the Prophet ﷺ did as well. For example, when the young Sahabi came to him saying, Ya Rasulullah, permit for me zina. And the Prophet asked him questions, said, would you like it for your mum? Would you like it for your sister?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And these are questions that the Prophet is asking to kind of get through to him the idea of like how bad this thing is, that you want to commit zina, you want to do it with your mum, would you like it for your sister? And I think, you know, being in line with something like that, where you're asking those kind of questions and you're putting statements out like that are going to provoke a person to realize, wow, this is really bad. But whether in the manner which he did it, you know.
Yeah. I just want to make a disclaimer.
Please.
Because I've never really spoken about someone publicly like this. So I just want to tell you, Akhi, if you're listening to this, أحبك في الله, I love you for the sake of Allah. It's not rad. You know what I mean? May Allah Azza wa Jalla bless you and honor you, and hopefully we get to meet each other one day, inshallah.
It my guy. Salafi brother, Allah barik, man. He's on the sunnah, he's doing his thing, mashallah. Shout out to him, man.
It's kind of like when you mentioned the statement of Imam Ahmed, Man anfa'a ha'ulai ala al-'amma.
Allahu
Maybe
Akbar.
perhaps that benefited a lot of
possibly.
people. Wallah.
Mashallah. But if anyone wants to sign up to his coaching service, we put the link below, inshallah.
Inshallah. So on that note, the question that I asked, why is it wrong for a woman to be out there in the first place?
When you say out there, you mean to do tabarruj?
Online, showing
Online,
herself.
yeah. أخي الله عز وجل said in the Quran كلي وقرن في بيوتكن ولا تبرجن تبرج الجاهلية الأولى. Stay at home. Women's job is to stay at home. Does that make sense? They only come out when there is a need. And the reason why they only come out when there's a need is because and they should stay at home is because the hadith Prophet mentioned that when the woman comes out, shaitan uses her for his vices. He uses her, like even in this book, Ad-Dawa Ad-Dawa, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim has a section where he writes from the angle of shaitan talking to his army. And shaitan is mentioning, he's saying, listen, if this slave of Allah, if you can't stop him and you can't throw him off and he's on his deen, throw a woman to him. Like, a woman will throw a man off his game completely. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, that the human was made weak. And this ayah, from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was on to give tafsir of it. She said, this ayah is talking about with regards to the affairs of the women, like men are weak to the affairs of the women. So a woman who's putting herself out there, and one, she's dropping her own nobility. Because Allah said, she wears her jilbab, so she could be known, وَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ, and so she does not get harmed. So she can be known for her piety and her modesty, and that so she will not be harmed. She will not be treated like, for example, now women have become commoditized, isn't it? Like in the West, like women have become commoditized. That is so degrading. Like a human being has become something to sell products with. Like you've taken away her intellect and everything and just stripped her down to her backside and her front part. So point being is that, you know, a woman coming out, it creates fitna. It creates fitna and fasad. The Prophet said that the biggest thing that I left behind for my ummah, so the biggest fitna that I fear for my ummah, that has been left behind for my ummah, is what? Fitnatul nisa. The fitna of the women. This can destroy people. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim in his book Turuq al-Hukmiyah said that when men and women start free mixing, what happens is that the whole country becomes collapsed. The hadith of the Prophet in Sunnah ibn Majah, where the Prophet said, there are 5 things, and I seek refuge with Allah that you see them. And one of them is ما ظهر فاحشة في قوم قط, that filth and zina and lewdness and things like pornography and this, that, and women dressed inappropriately and zina doesn't spread amongst a community. What happens? Except that Allah Azza wa Jalla will send it diseases that they never knew before. Right? So point being is, I think it's pretty understood like why women should remain.
And there's a nice hadith as well, just to top that up. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "ما رأيت من ناقصات عقل ودين أذهب للب الرجل الحازم من إحداكن."
Allahu Akbar.
He was speaking to the woman. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was speaking to the woman and saying, "I have not seen an individual who has naqs, as deficiency in terms of their intellect, likewise deficiency in their religion, who's able to strip the mind of a man who's hazim, a man who's so determined in life. He knows his whys. He knows his goals." and a woman will come and take his whole mind, and he'll run like this. So and she's deficient as well, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned.
Sallallahu alaihi
So how is someone deficient coming to take someone who's so straight? That goes as well to show the
Like
danger.
she will
of the
take a
woman.
man off.
Yeah.
And we've seen it.
Even
So-
some of the stories of the Salaf, a woman will take a man from his own deen as well. To the point, one of the tabi'een, I can't remember the story correctly, one of the tabi'een became a khariji just because of a woman.
Imran
Yeah.
Hattan.
So that's a woman who goes out there, she's doing tabarruj. What about a woman who's going out there, still putting herself online? She's covered. She wears jilbab. She's not wearing makeup. She's not doing anything from the apparent that would seem haram in terms of tabarruj. Is it calm for her to just be taking pictures, lifestyle pictures?
No, of course not. Allah said,
Why not?
Allah says stay at home. A woman should stay at home. So staying at home means you're not out with the public. Now, if you're at home but you're putting yourself on social media, that defeats the purpose of being at home. Like social media will cause a woman who's in the depths of a house to be out to the world, not just the public, the world.
You know something to mention, because that might sound very harsh to some people, like stay home, like don't do nothing. But you know what's a beautiful fa'idah? I read it yesterday in the kitab Qasas al-Quran, where the Shaykh, he brings a nice fa'idah that Adam alayhi salam, and he was created from the earth, from different parts of the earth. Allah Azza wa Jalla, he created Adam alayhi salam with his own two hands from the earth. And where was Hawa created from?
This side.
As the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, min al-dila', from the high part of the left side of the rib, for the rib, which is the weakest part. It's bent. So he mentioned a nice fa'idah. He mentioned men were created from the earth. It almost goes back, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. The purpose of why we're created. Mankind were created to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. From the ways a man worships Allah Azza wa Jalla is he goes out and he works to provide from his family. He was created from the earth. That's why he's so driven towards the world in terms of reaping from it. And the woman, she was created from the man. And that's why the woman, what her job is to do and what she's inclined to do is cater to her man. So some people, they'll think like, oh, stay at home. But in reality, that's one of the best occupations for a woman, to cater to her man, to raise a beautiful children, to uphold this household, for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So that's an occupation within of itself. That's an honor within of itself. That's a job that a man would not do justice to.
On that note, just quickly, I don't want to digress too far, but on that note, do you feel like it's an issue with the men of today that women feel the need to go out and do things like earn a living, get a degree? For example, let me give you an example, right? Any sister in the world, if she knew, for example, like when I get married, at whatever age that might be, until I'm married, my dad's going to provide for me fully. Like anything I need, I want, that's within reason, of course, he's going to provide for me completely. And number two, I'm going to get married to a king, for example. Yeah, she knows I'm going to get married to a king. He's very wealthy, he's got status, so on and so forth. Do you think she'd ever want to go uni?
No, of course.
Do you think she would ever even think about, I need to get a skill, or I need to go out and do this and do this and do this?
No, she might think I want to get a skill. You might want to set up a
No, but-
project like within the house. It's always good to give a woman a project. It's always give your wife something to work on. She could maybe work on a charity project from home. She could, maybe do a side business from home where she's, not where all of that money is hers. Like, as long as she does what, like memorize the Quran, take care
Do
of
you
the
think
kids.
she'd be going 5 days a week to
But
uni
no,
to
she
go and
wouldn't.
learn? And
She wouldn't be going out. And look, if a woman, we said a woman can go out if there's a need.
there's a need.
Does that make sense? So to earn a rizq is a need. Does that make sense? It's a need when your husband is not able to do it. Like when it comes back to that sister, that one that I mentioned to you earlier, she's doing what she's doing because clearly her husband's not putting up his socks. That she's saying, I got mouths to feed, I got a home to take care of, because her husband's not doing his part. Or maybe
Does that justify what she's doing?
Of course not.
Okay, just
of
make
course
that clear.
not. No, of course it doesn't justify. As in, if she was to earn a halal rizq, a halal income, there are many sisters who don't necessarily have men to provide for them, or they're in circumstances where the men that provide is not enough. So they go out there and work in halal circumstances, even though technically they shouldn't have to. They should be provided for, but they do, and they protect themselves.
Out
and
of
their
the
chastity.
need.
Out of the need to. Does that make sense? One thing I want to discuss is we discussed how to describe ghayrah. So how to pronounce it, but we didn't discuss what ghayrah actually is.
Tafadhal.
So a lot of people describe ghayrah as protective jealousy. But I personally have always felt like that translation is a bit deficient. It's always hard to define because like jealousy is a word that kind of has negative connotation.
Yeah.
Right? And ghayra is a characteristic from the characteristics of Allah. Like the Prophet said, أَتَعْجَبُونَ مِنْ غَيْرَةِ سَعَدٍ. He said, are you amazed? Are you astonished by how much ghayra Sa'ad has?
Why? What did Sa'ad do or say?
Sa'ad said, if I'm not mistaken, that if I caught a man who was with my wife, I would kill him.
With my wife, meaning?
Like doing zina. He said,
Okay.
I would just kill him. Does that make sense? So the Prophet ﷺ said, أَتَعْجَبُونَ مِنْ غَيْرَةِ سَعَدٍ Or كما قال, are you amazed and astounded by the ghayra of Sa'ad? And the Prophet ﷺ said, I have more ghayra than Sa'ad. وَاللَّهُ أَغْيَرُ مِنِّي Or كما قال, and Allah has more ghayra than me. So ghayra is a characteristic from the characteristics of Allah Azza wa Jal. What does it mean? Ghayra means, it means كراهية القبائح وبغضها. It is to hate and dislike filth.
Filth.
Qaba'ih. Things that are filthy, that are nasty. So Allah Azza wa Jal hates filthy and nasty things more than anyone, right? And Imam Ibn Qayyim in his Kitab al-Dawa al-Dawa, he actually mentions that ghayra is connected to iman. He describes ghayra as the hararatul badan. It's the fire, it's the heat that burns inside of the body. And what does heat do? He says heat, when you burn gold and silver, it purifies it. When gold comes out of the earth, it's not purified, is it? It's filthy, it has impurities. So you burn the gold, you burn the silver to purify it so it becomes shiny and beautiful. So Imam Ibn Qayyim said, ghayra is this hatred for filthy things, for yourself and for the ones that you love, your family members, and for mankind. Right? And for mankind, which is amazing because earlier, I remember we were talking and you mentioned, you know, like, you're like, I feel like I have more ghayra than some of these husbands because I will not, as it, you said, I feel like I have more ghayra.
There was a brother that said, why don't you, because there was a video that we saw of another brother who's in the manosphere, and he was basically berating this, not berating, but there was a couple, and he was basically, he was berating them from the angle of, like, she's out here doing this, and it's just silliness, cringiness, whatnot. So one of the brothers said, why don't you show this video on the podcast as well, so people can see exactly what you're talking about. I said, no, that's my sister. Like, I wouldn't, like, that's my sister in Islam. I wouldn't want to put her out there. And I'm thinking, bro, I've got more ghayra for this sister than her own husband does. Like, I'm reluctant to put her on the screen of our podcast because that's someone that's far. That's a sister in Islam. And even then, there's that base minimum level of ghayra. That's one of the reasons why we've never done things with sisters online publicly ever. Unless it was go ahead. Unless it was like you did a podcast with some sisters on the phone where they spoke, they called in.
There's like one or two of them.
There's no face. Like, so the point that I'm making is that.
And now imagine there's some brothers who are in the da'wah that put women on thumbnails. Ajib. Like when Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala saying ghayra is that you hate these things, not just for yourself, not just for your family members, but for what? An-nas, for people.
Because it's true, it's not just for the sisters, by the way. I have ghayra for them because I don't want them to be seen online. But I also have ghayra for my brothers, my young brothers who, bro, let's be honest, this day and age, a huge proportion of brothers are just masturbating like it's nothing. And sometimes you don't know what could trigger that in a brother. But that's wrong. They need to fix that into work on themselves. I'm not justifying what they're doing. But we need to...
And then pornography on top of that.
In the public sphere, you have to minimize as much as possible, close as many doors as possible. So if a brother, imagine he's now trying to come onto his deen. And he's saying, I want to watch an Islamic video. And he comes and there's a woman, she's dressed inappropriately, and he sees that. But that could be a reason for him to bash. That's disgusting. Ghayra isn't just for the sisters, it's for your brothers as well.
You know, there's a definition that I found that was actually kind of nice. There's a nice idafa where they mention it's تغير القلب و هيجان الغضب. So they say that it's the changing of the heart and this feeling of anger. But what's so beautiful, they say بمشاركة, they say in terms of the haqq of insan. Something sharing with the haqq of insan that shouldn't be shared. So imagine looking at your family members, your sister, your little girl, something that's your right. You're the only one who has the right to look at this, had to speak to them in that type of manner. And then someone comes and tries to share that with you, to have anger and to have this change of feeling, towards the haqq of something that's only supposed to be for you. They mentioned that's like يعني غيرة.
And what's shocking is that that's what the brother here was saying, isn't it? In the other video when he was like, oh, this is our wife now. As in, the point he's trying to make is, he's not saying so, but he's trying to say you've shared her. It's like why are you sharing your wife with us? I'll be honest with you, irrespective of the brother, what you think what the brother says is right or wrong, if a man who's putting his wife online sees male, sorry, Jazakallah khair, male. Because not every male is a man. Allah differentiates between male and men in the Quran. So every male who sees that, a man says that and he's still
burn him.
It doesn't burn them though.
I think in that way.
It doesn't burn them.
You don't think?
No, because they're the youth. They're the youth, akhi. Because the hararatul qalb is gone. Hararatul badan is gone, akhi. Look what Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said. Look at this, wallahi. He said, وَكَثِيرٌ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ لَا يَقْتَصِرُ عَلَى عَدَمِ. He said there's one thing which is to have less غيرة. But then for غيرة to be gone, look what he said. He said, وَكَثِيرٌ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ لَا يَقْتَصِرُ عَلى عَدَمِ الْإِسْتِقْبَاحِ. He said a lot of these guys, it's not just that they don't find it sickening when their wives are going out there looking beautiful for other men, or that their wives are dressed in clothing that's inappropriate, or that their wives are friends with other men, or nowadays like sleeping with other men. It's not just that they don't find this filthy. He said, بل يحسن الفواحش والظلم لغيره. Rather, he makes the filth look beautiful for other than him. ويزينه, and he beautifies it. ويدعوه إليه, and he calls to it. ويحثه عليه, and he encourages it. ويسعى له في تحصيله, and he strives to acquire this. Does that make sense? But هذا كان الديوث, and for this reason the youth, what is he? Which is what you would call in English a cuckold, right? And that's not a swear word. It's not a swear word. It's actually a word, yeah. I don't want to say it again. But he said, وَلِهَذَا كَانَ الدَّيُّوث, that the youth, أَخْبَثُ خَلْقِ اللَّهِ, is the most filthiest from the creations of Allah. وَالْجَنَّةُ حَرَامُ عَلَيْهِ, and paradise is haram on him, right? وَكَذَلِكَ مُحَلِّلُ الظُّلْمِ وَالْبَغِي لِغَيْرِهِ. Because what does he do? He permits oppression and filth for other than وَمُزَيِّنُ لَهُ. And then he took this from the hadith of the Prophet, and the Prophet said, ثَلَاثٌ لَا يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ. There are three types of people that will never enter paradise. وَلَا يَنْظُرُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Allah will not look at them on the day of judgment. And one of them is what? الدَّيُّوث.
So let me ask you a question
But no,
seriously.
for your riwayat, you have to make it clear. الديوث أش. And if you riwayat to Ahmed, it's الديوث يقر الخبث.
Yeah.
يعني في أهله.
Yeah, as in
يعني يرضى.
Yeah,
you have to make that, yeah.
Right, so what Brother Adam is saying, that he approves of it and he's pleased with it. And that's my point, is that you're smiling in the video, you're with her, you're
posting on your own account.
You're posting on your own account.
So on that note,
look, one second.
On that note.
Well, like some brothers are tested, yeah, with women. Some brothers are tested women who are just disobedient.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So, but the question I was going to ask is do you think genuinely, these guys are fully okay with it, or deep down, they dislike it, but they're too scared to speak
there's
out?
There's two types of brothers. There's one brother who finds it embarrassing that his wife's on social media. He feels sickened by it. He advises her. He's making dua to Allah. He doesn't come on with her. Then there's another don who's like, what's up? I'm in the background. Rather, you know what the filthiest of them all is? You know what the most sickest of them all is? There's one type, one sec. There's one type of don, yeah? There's one type who, his wife is the one who's the breadwinner, right? So I understand. But there's another don, you are the breadwinner, but you bring your wife into the video. Like you actually are. There's no need for you to bring, like you are already out there, Mr. Influencer, social media, blah, blah, blah. Why did you need to bring your wife in? Like there was actually no need. Like you actually are, you are doing it alone enough. Now you want me to say that guy doesn't approve it. That guy's not pleased with it. And there's,
I think we have to be just and fair.
Go on.
At the end of the day, this is min, يعني أمور القلب. This is the affairs of the heart. So at the end of the day, wallah, we don't know what's going on. But if it is the case, wallah, now I'm speaking to you brothers, wallah, that actually have your wives on camera, on social media. And wallahi, you're pleased with that. Wallahi, you should be scared. For like the brother he mentioned, Sheikh Imran, he mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, ثلاثة قد حرم الله. يعني قد, indeed, لا شك ولا ريب. Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to forbid the hellfire for you, the Jannah for you. For the one who's pleased with that. So wallahi, I'm sitting here, I understand the point that you're coming from. You know, from the apparent, it might look like someone's pleased with it because maybe nahnu, Allah Azza wa Jalla make us from the men, real men.
I mean,
we can't picture ourselves in that type of situation. Our woman being like that. Whether we have one, two, none of them being like that. So يعني, it might be difficult for us to understand the situation of others. ولكن wallahi, if you are someone who is pleased with this and you don't see something wrong with this, to the point your wife's coming out with no hijab, your wife's coming out with makeup, anything يعني, that, like the brother he mentioned, that is going to lead to fahisha, lead to zina. Yani the woman who leaves the house with perfume on. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned what? قد, indeed she has committed zina. Likewise, the ulama, they make qiyas with the perfume, likewise makeup.
And so makeup's worse.
And makeup's worse actually. You know, Jazakallah khairah. So if your wife is like this and you are pleased with this, wallah, my advice to you brothers, wallah, is fear Allah Azza wa Jalla, for it's not pleasing to anyone to hear the fact that you might be an individual who's prevented from entering al-Jannah. You know, we hope that you guys are not like that. Like, and if it is the case, well, it's not a light matter, wallah.
Just to clarify what Adam's saying, I'm not labeling any particular person as the youth.
Any individual, like you as a guy, your name, you're the youth.
Yeah, I'm not doing. I'm
We're saying this is the youth behavior.
I'm saying the youth behavior. And remember, there's a difference between, for example, a person doing kufr and becoming a kafir, a person doing bid'ah and becoming a mubtadi'. When we talk about, for example, bid'ah and kufr in a general sense, we'll say this is kufr. That doesn't mean I'm saying you have now become a kafir, even though you could have. Does that make sense? And it's not my place to label people. And I just want to mention on this point as well, like, because we did a child Bhai, I think on TikTok or something a few years ago, and I was talking about a particular couple who was on social media, and that one was very clear what I was talking about. And I feel like I didn't, when I was talking about a particular individual, conduct myself in the best of ways. Because it comes back down to the issue of ghaira, isn't it? That you don't want to put this out there for your other Muslim sisters or brothers or whatever have you. So even that was not the most appropriate. It wasn't appropriate to even speak in that way, which is why I'm making a point of I'm not talking about anyone here directly. And I don't want anyone at the end of this to think I've taken any indirects or anyone. I'm actually just talking pure general. Like, as in, there are many cases like this.
If the shoe fits, it fits.
Yeah, so don't blame me if it fits. It's not my shoe. But, it's not my size.
And I also feel like we also shouldn't go too far to excuses for people as well, because at the end of the day, people clap back with, oh no, but I'm not the youth because I don't let my wife sleep around. Habibi, that's not the youth is not limited to that.
Yeah.
It's not just because my wife isn't sleeping around other men, therefore I'm not the youth. No, Habibi, you are the youth. If you fulfill, if you're pleased, happy with your wife being out there online, you're pushing out there yourself, you're making money from her being online. Bro, you might even be a pimp, let alone the youth. Yeah. You're making money from your wife being online. You're making that. This makes me feel sick, even the thought of it. One important clarification, by the way, it's not just your wife. Your mum comes under this as well.
Too, yeah.
You got people in the da'wah scene putting pictures of their mums up online without hijab.
You're a dad. Shall I tell you something?
Dressed
Shall I tell you
appropriately.
something? So one time, one of my sister.
And your sister.
So let me tell you something. So to give you an example of this, yeah. So my sister was one time in a different country, and her husband couldn't bring her back. Does that make sense? So she needed to come back to the UK, right? So I asked one of my teachers, I said, look, she asked me to pick her up. My sister asked me to pick her up. So I asked one of the mashayikh, I said, look, Sheikh, like it was going to be very inconvenient for me to pick her up. I had the money, but it's like, who wants to just spend money on a ticket and go on a 24-hour journey there and back just to pick up someone and come back? Like, it's not the most ideal thing, right? So I said, Sheikh, like, my sister wants to come back. She's asked me to come. Like, do I have to like go pick her up? Like, is it even my responsibility? Does that make sense? It's gonna be a bit heavy. So he said, look, if you don't want to be a youth, go pick up your sister. That's what Sheikh said to me. What I said to me, he said, you'll be a youth if you don't. He said, it will be the youth behavior if you don't go pick her up. Sarahatan, he looked at me, you know what I'm saying? I even remember one time I was speaking to Sheikh Asim Quryuti in Mecca, and again, because my sister lived in a different country, right? So my father was very ill and he had a very serious operation surgery, and her husband again couldn't bring her back because he worked, right? So, and I wasn't able to go pick her up either. So I asked Sheikh, I said, Sheikh, is she able to come? And like, wallahi akhi, the Sheikh stopped 5 minutes just thinking. Because you could tell like he didn't want to make things hard. He didn't want to come out and say, no, she can't fly back. She can't fly back. You know, without a mahram to see her father who's going to have a surgery. But at the same time, he didn't want to just dismantle the sharia of Allah. So I could tell he was thinking like, when I stopped, I remember, we'll never forget, akhi, stopped 5-10 minutes. In my mind, I'm thinking, in my mind, I was like, I didn't know. It was such a complicated answer. He was thinking. And then he looked at me, akhi, like, as if he almost had a tear in his eye. He said, Imran, she will need a mahram to travel with. Because akhi, the hadith is clear. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying the sharia of Allah is clear. It's not like my father didn't have me and my brother and the rest of the family members. It wouldn't have been the end of the world if she didn't come back. Do you understand? Like, it's a luxury. Obviously, it's not ideal, but akhi, sabr. That's where we need sabr now, innit? It's the deen of Allah. Let's have sabr and let's submit to Allah, because at the end of the day, we're here to worship Allah Azza wa Jal through various different ways that Allah Azza wa Jal has legislated for all of us to worship. But the point being here is that this is serious. Does that make sense? Like, even like her traveling without, and I understand that there's difference, might be difference of opinion. Like, I remember, one of the mashayikh came to the UK and he mentioned that women traveling within the United Kingdom or whatever have you. My point is, if you take a different opinion, and you believe it, not just out of following your desires, but genuinely you're convinced by it. I'm not talking about those brothers, but I'm saying, I'm just trying to give you a point that you got.
This could be borderline.
And I personally don't see a way for my wife to travel, or my sisters to travel, or my mother to travel without a mahram. Me personally, so I have to be consistent.
The final point before we move on to the other end of the spectrum when it comes to ghira, is what about sisters that are online giving da'wah? Her husband is pleased with his wife to be online giving da'wah. She's might be wearing niqab, or let's say she takes the view that niqab's not wajib, she just wears jilbab. What's this guy? Because even that, when I was going through the whole Hiwa thing, I saw that he had another video that he released a couple months ago, where some sisters came to him who were giving da'wah online, and they asked him for advice on, what should we do, what should we not. And he advised them, like, you shouldn't be giving da'wah online. Like, you shouldn't be putting stuff out there.
Asked Brother Hiwa.
They asked him, for advice. He came and said no. And then there's another brother, one of the brothers from, you went to their podcast, I think, 3 Muslims. He responded and said, no, they should be, like, as in you're wrong, and you shouldn't say that sisters shouldn't be giving da'wah, so on and so forth. So on this note, so if a sister, we've covered if she does tabarruj, we've covered if she is covered, she still shouldn't, because only if there's a need. So would da'wah be considered a need? Because there's many sisters that would love to come online and just start spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Firstly, just to clarify, and I felt like we talked about brother who were more than that was necessary, in the sense where we just wanted to use that clip as a thing. And I truly love the brother, and this is not a criticism on the brother, but just generally speaking, like, and I think he would approve of this as well. And he would say, like, we myself and brother Hiwa and yourself, we are not the kind of people to come to ask for fatwa, like, should I come out and give da'wah or not? And I think the brother would say the same thing. And I think he mentioned that he actually got something from the ulama, and he gave them a question from the ulama. So jazahullahu khaira, that he didn't give a fatwa for himself, but he told the sisters what the mashayikh said. But just generally, it's better. Like, even sisters have come to me asking before, like, can we go out there and give da'wah? And I just asked the mashayikh, because we are not equipped to answer such questions, because one of the things that the ulama, they do is they look at awaqibul umur. They look at the final outcome. Like, I would do something today that seems so much khair, like da'wah, but tomorrow that da'wah, that da'iyah can start doing zina with a man. And we've seen, like, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, Allah Azza wa Jalla said that Shaitan said, لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُم مِّن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. Shaitan said, I'm going to come and attack you from the right. What does it mean from the right? Some of the scholars said he's going to come attack you from issues of the deen. Like, he's going to tell you, do this thing in the deen, and that will then use that to throw you off. So, for example, giving da'wah sounds great. I'm passing, akhi, me, wallahi, akhi.
Shubuhat.
Huh? Well, there's so many tafasir for this. So one is there's so many tafasir from this, and it will bring issues of deen, and from them throw you off. So this one of the ayat, there's scholars give many tafasir for what it means: front, back, side, left, right. So point being is that, akhi, wallahi, man, I'll be honest with you, bro. I was one of the first and most forefront people of encouraging sisters to do khair and trying to teach sisters and having sisters-based projects. And akhi, wallahi, everyone told me around me, akhi, it creates fitna. Akhi, wallahi, it creates fitna. Allah, akhi, this is not something that's for women. You know what I'm saying? That women are not best designed for these type of things. Allah created men and He created women. I'm not saying women shouldn't give da'wah, But their da'wah is not like the way that men do it. And I came to the conclusion, wallah, when you put women in those situations and those circumstances, it just creates fasad, man. It really does. It really does. I remember I was on the da'wah table one time and I had actually encouraged some sisters to come and give da'wah, to talk to the women, because I didn't like it when women were coming and asking me questions about deen. Because one time I was having a conversation on the da'wah table and I was being very passionate. And this is maybe like 10, 11 years ago. And I'm just talking when I was a young lad, when I was a youngster.
Whippersnapper.
What does that mean?
You know, young whippersnapper?
I don't know. If it's good, then yeah,
You're not
maybe.
a cultured man, akhi.
Okay. So point being, I was young and I was just passionate talking, and there was this girl that was there, and at the end she was like, "Yo, I gotta go, but can we talk about this over Nando's?" And I was like, "I'll introduce you to some of the sisters." Like suddenly just hit me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that day I realized like this could be dangerous for me as a man as well. So what I did was I told some of the sisters to come out on the da'wah table. I remember there was one brother, may Allah bless him, brother. He came to me, man. He was like, Imran. I should beep out his name because make him like, because I'm about to share something he said. But he came out and he's like, Imran, I don't bring them out, man. I was like, I'm a man, it's fitna for me. Like, as in, I'm not going to come out on the da'wah table if you do this because you're making it fitna for the brothers. Every time I've seen women come and when they are at the forefront, like it does destroy everything. It destroys. It creates a lot of fitness. So women should definitely do da'wah, but they should do it not online. They should do it offline.
And under the guidance and supervision of scholars. It's not a case of... Because the brother that was responding to Hiwa, he's kind of green light. Like, you know, he was in Sheikh Ibn Baz allowed it. He didn't differentiate between men and women and came with quite a few things and mentioned, you know, Yusuf Qaradawi said this.
Who's Yusuf Qaradawi?
Bro,
the guy who said that if Allah came to an election, he would lose. The guy that said if Allah came to an election, he would lose.
I'm not even trying to go down that road. But the point is that the brother that responded was saying all of these things. And the sisters could take from that, look, like anyone, because the thing is, bro, even brothers can't just pick up a phone and start recording videos and start giving da'wah. That was it's a very
100%.
It's a very controlled thing. It's a thing
in
that has
the
to be controlled in the deen. Even between the men, like it has to be controlled. Like so, for sisters, it's even more so. Yeah. That doesn't mean, by the way, we're not saying sisters shouldn't give any da'wah whatsoever. There's ways and methods which sisters can give da'wah. But it has to be something that is given. Like you said, the asl of a woman is that she doesn't come out. She doesn't put herself out there. Even so, I remember a question was asked on one of the sisters' trips, about sisters taking pictures of themselves and being fully covered and everything. And Sheikh Asim al-Qaryuti, the student of Sheikh al-Albani.
Right? Huh? Sisters' Umrah trip.
Sisters' Umrah trip. So the Sheikh was there and they asked him about taking pictures. And he said, no, you shouldn't take pictures of yourself and put them online. Even if you're wearing niqab. Still shouldn't. He went as far as to say, sisters, you should not have pictures of yourself on your camera roll. Why? These days, number one, your iCloud could get hacked or your phone could get hacked. Someone could access your pictures from there. Number two, there have been situations that have happened where women have their phone's broken, they're giving it to the repair shop. The guy's going in to repair the phone. Suddenly he's got access to everything that comes up on his phone. Like there's ways, and you might have a private Instagram where only sisters follow you. But what if that sister's watching on the train, she's going through her stories and your picture comes up, then there's a man next to her, he sees it. Or what if her husband goes through her phone and sees her...
Even if he doesn't go for sometimes
which he shouldn't do, by the way. It's wrong for a husband to go through his wife's phone.
Sometimes our families are on social media just going through things and you don't even intend to look, but you will just... Like, even if it's an accidental look or a partial peripheral vision type of look, like, you will see things. So
the point he was making, this should be something that should be completely, like, unless there is a need. And again, that goes back to the scholars. Don't come to us asking... is my situation, have I learned enough? Is my situation one where I'm able to give that? Well, don't come to brother Hiwa or the three Muslims or anyone you see that is, go to the scholars for this.
And if you ask me, I'll just ask the scholars. Just to mention a point very quickly, yeah.
So can I say something?
Of course you can.
Is that all right?
Oh yeah, we'd love to speak.
Yeah, really.
That's what I wanted to jump in. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I feel like I disagree with you guys. I feel like you're making it a bit tough for the sisters.
Okay.
Telling them they can't do da'wah. I think they should. I think you should encourage them. They should be told to do da'wah.
To their children.
To the children, and that's it. Nowhere else. Stick to your kids and don't go anywhere else. That's literally all they have to do.
Yeah, as in, sorry, we should have mentioned that they should do da'wah.
No, I wanted
for a second I thought, wait, no, this is Sarah.
No, honestly, I get asked this question many times as well, and I've looked at so many fatwa from the mashayikh regarding this issue, and even though they mention all these conditions about women can, shurud, conditions, this, that, all these kind of things, at the end of the day, one of the things that they all mention is that do your da'wah at home. Yeah. Stick to your kids, stick to your family, raise your kids, busy yourself, memorize the Quran so you can teach them, memorize the Arabic language so you can teach them, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. A lot of people, they think da'wah is only meant to be out in the public. I don't know who gave people that idea, that concept. Da'wah starts at home. وَأَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ نَارًا. That's all you have to do.
100%.
Save yourself and your family from the hellfire.
It's a sad
So-
truth. I feel like women are really, people, men as well. I really don't think they understand the tarbiyah of the kids. A lot of it goes down to the woman. For real, for real.
Yeah,
That's why
sometimes-
generation seems to be getting worse and worse and worse.
That most of it goes on to
Some scholars, they mentioned that the woman, she's a madrasa. She's a school. Because she educates all these kids that come from her. And that's what they need to focus on. Not going online and social media and
I'm amazed.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at the غيرة of Saad.
اللهم بارك تعجبون من غيرة سعد الله.
So now we have to come to the flip side of this, and we are quite limited for time, but I think we may have to shorten the salah one just to get this point in there, which is the new 2023-2022 phenomenon of غيرة. It's not غيرة. Other than غيرة, which is, for example, in this day and age now, you've got brothers who you would say are men. You wouldn't call them males. You say these brothers are men. And they sometimes will do things such as, for example, preventing their wife from attending a class, preventing her from seeking knowledge, preventing her from getting help if she wants help, whether it's marriage-related counseling or Islamic fatwa, because they've completely, like people have this stereotype, oh, you guys just want to box women in. They've actually gone and done that now. Like, what is that? And can there ever be such thing as too much ghaira or an extreme in ziyada when it comes to ghaira?
Of course, they be extreme in anything. Like Imam Hassan al-Basri rahmahullah ta'ala said, also Imam al-Awza'i said the same. There's not a single thing that Allah Azza wa Jalla commanded or prohibited the slaves, except that shaitan will sniff from your heart. If you're a person who's passionate, he'll make you go extremely overboard. And if you're a person who's lenient and relaxed, he'll make you become extremely negligent of it and liberal with regards to it. So I just, again, would like to refer to Imam Ibn al-Qayyim here. He brings the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which shows you the balance when it comes to the issue of ghaira. Wallahi, it's a beautiful hadith. He said that Allah is, and the hadith is in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, if I'm not mistaken, where the Prophet ﷺ said, "La ahada aghyaru min Allah." And I want all my brothers to pay attention to this, because at the same way, we've really kind of bashed the youths, and I believe that the youths are filthy creatures. But at the same time, brothers, ittaqillah when it comes to falling opposite extreme. And here, the Prophet ﷺ said, La ahada aghyaru min Allah. There is no one that has more ghayra than Allah Azza wa Jal. That feeling of, anger and hatred towards filth, right? من أجل ذلك, and because of that reason, حرم الله الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن. And because of that, Allah Azza wa Jal made filthy things, zina. And remember, ghayra is usually, it's very much around sins generally, but also specifically like zina. Remember, like not all sins are of the same level, isn't it? Like even though, for example, zina is a kabira, is a major sin, and for example, lying is a major sin. Lying is still filthy and it's evil, but like zina is like, bro, like your morality drops. Even though it drops with lying, but like with zina more. Like, do you get me? In the sense where it's so filthy. So point being is that Allah Azza wa Jalla made zina haram because of his ghayra. And then the Prophet said, وَلَا أَحَدْ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْهِ الْعُذْرُ min Allah. And there is no one that loves to excuse and give excuses and to let off his slave other than Allah. من أجل ذلك أرسل الرسل مبشرين ومنذرين. And for that reason, Allah Azza wa Jalla sent out messengers to give glad tidings and warn. So then Imam Ibn al-Qayyim said, فجمع في هذا الحديث بين الغيرة التي أصلها كراهة القبائح وبغضها ومحبة العذر الذي يوجب كمال العدل والرحمة والإحسان. He said in this hadith, the Prophet combined between two characteristics of Allah. One which is to have this ghayra, which is its default is to hate these actions, but at the same time the justice of Allah, which is what? To excuse and forgive and forget. So then Imam Ibn al-Qayyim goes to say, وَهَذَا غَايَةُ الْمَجْدِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَنِهَايَةُ الْكَمَالِ. And this is what perfection is. This is what perfection is. فَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِمَّنْ تَشْتَدُّ غيرة من المخلوقين تحمل شدة الغيرة على سرعة الإيقاع والعقوبة من غير إعذار منه. He said some people, they've got such extreme غيرة that their غيرة, it causes them to become so excessive that they will quickly punish, right? They'll give punishments and they won't give excuses, and they'll be very tough at times where they could have given an excuse and they could let it off. So for example now, Like there was a particular brother, and may Allah Azza wa Jal bless him. And I really love this brother, and I feel like he's a brother of khair, mashallah, tabarakallah. He's got a lot of ghairah, and he's known for ghairah, mashallah, tabarakallah. And you know, one time what happened was that, you know, his family was out. There was like a females gathering.
His family, as in his mom, dad, sister, siblings, brothers.
His missus. Like, I respect him saying.
Okay.
So one time his
so just clarify that.
yeah, his missus was out at a female gathering.
And you're referring to his missus as his family.
Yeah. So there was a gathering, mashallah, tabarakallah, and it was all proper like sisters and no cameras, no CCTV, very good gathering. And what happened was, unfortunately, one of the sisters who was supposed to bring the sister back or something or whatever have you, like left. And the venue, she had to leave the venue. So she was out, like on the road now. Does that make sense? And she's fully covered, mashallah, and whatever, in niqab. And I remember the brother was with me. And when his family told him, like, he became extremely angry on the phone. Very angry. And I said to him, calm down, bro. Like, it's not her fault. Like, as in, he's like, no, but she should have like been careful and this and that. I'm like, I get you, but ghair is good and you should have it. But then you have to combine that with justice and give the excuse when it's due, because that's the thing. Like Imam Ibn al-Qayyim trying to say, like, despite Allah Azza wa Jalla's ghairah and how angry he gets at filth, like no one more angry than Allah when it comes to zina. But likewise, no one wants to just forgive his slave and excuse him more than Allah. So Imam Ibn al-Qayyim said to become extreme to the point where you're not letting your wife attend classes. You know what I'm saying? Some brothers, one thing personally I find to be very extreme is brothers who like don't let their wives' names be mentioned, like be known, sorry, not be mentioned, be known. Like for example, there was one time one brother mentioned your wife's name. Who was it again? And he started panicking. Remember there was one brother?
Yeah.
Who was it again?
Johnny.
Huh?
Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny. He mentioned his wife's name. I think he must have heard him talking to his wife once.
Such an interesting
dynamic.
That does not even happen.
He just apologized to him for like 2 weeks straight. Like, I'm so sorry, I said your wife's name. Like, he didn't mean to. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, we know the Prophet's wives' names, man.
Yeah, but I don't believe that just out and about brothers should be using other brothers' wives' names.
Of course, no one's saying out and about use brothers' wives' names, but I'm saying
I can't imagine a situation where a brother would need to use another man's wife's name.
I'm just saying it's not a big deal. Like I'm saying, me personally, I wouldn't go out. Like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, your wife's name's Samantha, sister Samantha. She's a Reva. Yeah, let's hypothetically. I wouldn't come to you and be like, yo, how's Samantha? Like, let's just say you told me your family's sick. And as a Muslim, I have concern, right? I have concern for you, right? So I wouldn't come to you and say, how's Samantha? Like, how's sister Samantha? Is she better now? I would just ask, how's your family doing? How's your wife doing? Is she better? There's nothing wrong with that. But some brothers would take offense. Don't mention my wife's name. What do you mean don't mention my wife's name?
Yeah, I would find it a bit weird if you mentioned my wife's name.
But I'm saying, no, there's nothing weird about it.
I would find that very weird.
We know the person's wife's name.
Yeah, because
I'm saying you shouldn't go out and say it, but a man shouldn't be offended by it. My point is that yes, I understand.
I'm not offended, but definitely would feel comfortable with it if another brother mentioned my wife's name.
No, but would you say he's done something wrong?
I can't speak on that. I can only talk about personal preference. It's a personal preference.
I don't know a woman alive today that's more modest than Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha. Because earlier you were saying, a woman more than Fatima radiallahu anha. Like when she was dead, she said, when I die, cover my coffin, my shroud with something so the shape of my body can't be seen. And she's dead in a shroud already. Right? And no one had more ghairah than...
But there's a need to know their names, right?
Huh?
There's a need to know their names.
We could have known her kunya. There was some sahabi, we know their kunya. We could have known her kunya.
She didn't narrate any ahadith or anything like that. Because when you're narrating hadith, you need to know exactly who the person is.
If it's a sahabi, you don't need to know sahabi's name because sahabi can be mursal.
I don't know, I'm just saying, I just don't think it's too much of an issue.
I think it's batil. Well, I think it's batil.
What are your thoughts, Sa'ad?
Well, I just feel like if it was a case that it was something terrible, Allah would have never let it happen in the deen.
Yeah.
If it was something bad, He would have never let any people mention the name of the Prophet's wives. If it was an issue.
There was no one more modest than them. There was no one more modest than the wives of Prophet. They reached ghayatul haya, akhi. Mashayikh have come to me and asked me, how's my wife? By mentioning her name because they know her.
But yeah, on that note, though...
No, that I can... Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Fadl.
No, you talk.
This is an opportunity that can't be missed.
But the only thing I was going to say is that even with that being said, that there's no problem in the name being mentioned, I do believe that people should cater for people's preferences.
100%.
If I know somebody that just doesn't like it, I don't necessarily have an issue. Someone mentions my wife's name, I don't see it to be an issue. But I know other people, they do have an issue with that. So I'll be cautious just when I talk to them. If I ask, I wouldn't mention their name.
Okay,
No,
well, I
100%,
think it goes back to the issue of need. Because, for example, like you said, Sheikh
I
Qasim
don't think it's
al-Qaryuti.
any issue of need, bro.
No, Sheikh Qasim al-Qaryuti, when on one of his Umrah trips, his wife and my wife, they linked up and they spoke and so on and so forth. So on another trip, he asked me about, how is your wife and so on and so forth. And I spoke to him and mentioned that wasn't too much of an issue. But if it's like a young brother coming up to me, saying to me, yeah, and he mentioned my wife's name and how is she and whatever, like, I don't know. Personally, I find it very uncomfortable.
No worries. You can find it uncomfortable. You can have it as a preference. It could be even culture thing, but did he do something wrong?
That's I don't think.
But there are some
Go back to the
cultures.
scholars
There are some cultures.
on that
There
one.
are some cultures where you don't mention a woman's name, right? There are definitely some cultures.
That's it, you just cater for certain
Yeah,
preferences. That's really it.
العرف معمول به إذا ورد. And if it's a culture thing, no problem, we respect that. But if it's not a culture thing, and let's be real, a lot of us is not.
One thing that did actually blow my mind on this issue, on this topic.
Because can I just say, because there was one brother, like, it was me and him got into it. He was trying to marry a sister. He hadn't even married her yet. So I asked him, because obviously, to mention this is his name, like I was thinking, he got so offended.
And he hasn't even married her yet.
He wasn't even married. The brother was you.
Yeah, do you remember?
I don't remember.
In the car, bro, you got so angry. Well, I even said it in the notes, and it's like, you got so
I don't
offended.
remember.
You got so offended.
I don't remember.
How did you change?
I mean, definitely, I was a lot more so before. I believe I still am, as in, I'm
you
not
should
saying.
be. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, but the final thing to conclude, because we've got another podcast to record now. Final point I want to ask. Sorry. Yeah, as in we're going to reduce the time of the next one.
No, inshallah, we'll still get it.
The final thing to mention, inshallah, is what is the correct, balanced understanding of ghairah? Because, for example, one narration that you mentioned, the man said, I would kill another man if I saw my wife.
Is it doing zina?
Another
Obviously.
narration where when the Muhajirun went to Medina, some of the companions, some of the men, they came and said, what? I've got 4 wives.
2.
I've got 2 wives.
Yeah.
Pick whichever one you want and you can marry her. And I know, like, bro, I know there's some brothers that would look at that and be like, yeah, no, it's that one, not really, like, mention that. Bro. Like, if you mention that without saying it was a Sahabi, especially, oh, this guy did this, straight away they'd be like, they might even say this guy's the youth, like, to that level. If they didn't know, I'm saying that it was a Sahabi. So the point is how do you contextualize all of this and what is the correct, balanced understanding of ghairah?
I don't think I can give an appropriate answer for that. If you want me to do jump between those two things, like how do you reconcile? Allah alam. I don't know how to reconcile between the issue of Sa'd ibn Rabi'a radiallahu ta'ala anhu and this hadith. Obviously, he had ghairah for his women and whatnot, and so on. The point was that it was his love for his Muslim brother. And he was willing to divorce one of his wives for him to marry her. And
in the context of they've left behind everything. They left behind their wives, their houses, they had nothing.
Allahu alam, maybe like as in they were new to Islam, maybe they didn't know it, like Allahu alam.
No problem.
I don't think there's a
interesting question to
I don't think it's an interesting question, contradicting at all. I think one is something that is haram. Someone entering upon your wife. By nature, you're going to defend your family. And not only are you going to defend them, if you die doing so, you're going to go to Jannah. You're going to get the status of a shaheed. And then the other one is something that is permissible. Talaq and zawaj. So you're weighing something that's haram with something that is halal. So I don't think there's any contradiction at all.
In the minds of the people today, I'm saying, the brothers today, I feel like they're like, what? Divorce my wife and let another man marry her? What? Mad.
That's goes to show that the level.
Divorce your second wife. I said, no, you're divorcing the second wife.
No,
I'm against that. I'm against that.
That's what I'm saying. As in, you got 2, right? So
no, he doesn't mean the second in number. Meaning,
as in you got 2. So take one of them.
Probably
give him a hard time.
It goes to show لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That's من الإيمان. And if anything, that goes to show the ta'ah of the man. Number 1, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam أخا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم he used to when they made hijrah, he used to pay the muhajirun wal ansar to one another. So that's from the obedience of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of helping the muhajirin. And likewise, look at the ta'ah of the woman. You know what I mean? The fact that she could listen to her husband like that, go to another man who's another sahabi, Like, to be honest with you, I'm not gonna lie. When I read the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, I was in my one of the rooms in Medina. I was on the floor. I remember I read that hadith. Wallah, it made me. That made me feel bad.
Feel bad?
Yeah.
In what?
In terms of my mahabba for Allah Azza wa Jalla. What I do, what He did. You know.
As in, if the situation came to you, would you be able to do what he did?
Yeah. That's not. You don't need a ghayra in that situation. That's
Obedience.
that's al-istislam lillahi. Yani bit-tawheed. Like, that's real tawheed right there. You know what I mean? And likewise, it's tawheed for a woman, for a man to enter you and you defend your family. Like, that's tawheed as well.
Yeah, well, it's very true. It's like, for example, we have this concept of if a man asks a friend of his, could I marry your sister, he'll be offended. What are you talking about? Sahaba would marry each other's sisters, then one might get a divorce and then his friend would marry. Like imagine, one of the brothers, if he divorces his wife.
Could someone not argue that they were that was the Sahaba? Like Umar radiallahu anh told a man to divorce, Umar radiallahu told his son to divorce his wife, and he did so. And someone asked a scholar today, or not today, but recently, I looked into this issue. My father has told me to divorce my wife, and he said that Umar, and he gave the narration of Umar told his daughter and his son obeyed. And the Shaykh asked, but your father's not Umar. Like, as in,
no, 1 second.
The Sahaba, as in they had.
No, I think it's very dangerous what you're saying, because we were told. I'm going to answer a question about this in a second, but just generally speaking, we were told to follow the Sahaba. We're told we can't get to Jannah without following the Sahaba.
Agreed.
And doing what they do.
Agreed.
And we were told, so we cannot say, they were superhumans and that was a Sahaba and we can't do it. No, we were told, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. So we have to follow them. There's no two excuses. The answer to this question, to explain it perhaps, is that one of the conditions for a man, the scholars mentioned, commanding his son to divorce his wife, is that he must be righteous. Does that make sense? He must be a righteous man. So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that if the father is righteous, because sometimes a father might tell you divorce her for a reason that's not khayr.
Personal reason, he doesn't like ethnicity.
Right. But if he's righteous, then he might be like Ibrahim alayhi salam when he told Ismail, change the locks to your gate, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The doormat.
Huh?
The doormat.
The doormat, okay. Basically, he indicated him to divorce. He was a righteous father. He knew. He was telling his son, look, this woman's not good for you. And then perhaps the sheikh that you're talking about knew of the father to not be righteous. And that was his way of explaining to the son. Like, for example, a man came to Sheikh Fawzan. He said, do you know Sheikh Muqbil? And he said, no, I don't know him. But he does know him. And the scholars mentioned the reason he said that is because what he meant was, I don't know him the way you want me to know him. As in, you want me to know him to be in a particular evil way. So because he knew the question and the way he was going to answer the question, what he wanted to do with it, he told him. So perhaps the sheikh knew from the man that his father is not righteous. So he's saying, your father's not Umar. In other words, your father's not righteous. Wallahu alam.
At the end of the day, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentioned Kitabullahi alaykum. The book of Allah Azza wa Jalla is upon you. So the way you're going to govern your life is based on text. I think that's the most valuable.
Any final comments before we conclude?
Yeah, just Allah forgive me to echo Adam. So our Sheikh Khalid, may Allah Azza wa Jalla preserve him. One of the things I benefited from him the most is that on these issues of, being balanced. Like sometimes you find hadith, for example, where we're supposed to be people of zuhud, and then we find examples where we're encouraged to seek wealth, and ayat of the Quran seek wealth. تنسى نصيبك من الدنيا. Like, how do
take things in a vacuum?
How do we balance? Yeah, like, how do we balance? Like, for example, have غيرة here, like تعجبون من غيرة سعد. And when he said I was going to kill the guy, amazed by his غيرة, and then here, for example, like I'm saying, these things are balanced. The answer, the Shaykh said, wallahi, if you just study the Sirah of the Prophet, it will become clear to you. Don't take one. If we just study the Sirah of the Prophet holistically, like for example, we knew that no one had more غيرة than the Prophet, but at the same time, no one. It's not like the people didn't know the Prophet's wives' names. Like, do you understand? Like, do you understand?
Kind of lost you a little bit.
I'm saying, like, on one extreme, like, I don't want to know to my wife's name, but I'm saying the Prophet had the most ghira. Yet at the same time, we find that. Okay, I'll give you an example. Like, some brothers find it awkward if you go and ask, how's your family doing? How's your wife doing? Like, brothers, don't ask me about my wife. Don't ask me about my family. The person would go and ask. He would go and ask. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu, when he got married, he asked, how's things with your wife? And some of the narrations meant it was his father, it was the Prophet himself. Okay, if you said that no, it wasn't the Prophet, it was his father, then khair. What about the Hadith Salman al-Farisi when he went to the wife of Abu Darda himself? and he saw her disheveled. He saw her not being taken care of.
How she was living, yeah.
And how she was living. And she said, my husband, he doesn't have need for me. And then he went to her and he involved himself in the marriage for khair. Now, of course, the guy, Salman is a muttaqi, muslih, salih, you know what I'm saying? Like he's a righteous man, fearing of Allah Azza wa man. Not any fajr and fasiq can come and interfere. But my point is that let's just say, for example, that there are two brothers on deen and they're people of khair and whatnot, and one of them inquires, how's things with your family? Can I give you advice? Can I maybe give you, I see you guys are struggling, like maybe can I impart some advice to both of you? Can I help you? Say that again?
When he got married as well, the Prophet ﷺ asked, was she,
Barakallah fiqh, I didn't know that.
married before? Or is she old? Is she young?
Jabir.
Yeah. Oh, Jabir,
Yeah.
Abdullah.
Jabir.
Sorry, no.
Yeah, look at that. The Prophet I'm asking, did you marry a virgin? I didn't marry a virgin. I married a woman's a non-virgin. Why? And the Prophet then giving him advice. When you go to her, he's saying, don't go so fast. Let the announcer announce so that she can shave herself for you. And then he told her, don't go in because you're young and like too rough in one of the narrations, Like, look at that, man. So this, like, yeah, so point is when you study the life of the Prophet, you'll get the full balance, inshallah. And the Prophet himself would go and teach the women. Into the women's section, that was the Prophet. Okay, then one time the Prophet took Bilal with him to collect the sadaqah from them. Bilal, he wasn't the Prophet, right? Like, so point being is that there's extremes.
Okay, inshallah, we'll conclude it there. Hopefully you guys benefited. And the takeaways is, number one, don't be a dayuth. Number two, don't be an extremist. Be a balanced Sunni Salafi, inshallah. So with that said, we'll conclude there. We'll see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.